Hi there. So the other day I was cruising the internet, doing what we often do, and I came across this video. And I was struck with a bit of inspiration. It's primarily because I myself am all about things like magic, muscle, and meal prep. And this is in particular a meal prep video. And I myself was on the market for some meal prep inspiration. It struck me. Now, if you didn't already know, James Remington is a very well-established YouTuber here on this platform, and he specializes in creating recipes that are anabolic, which are typically primarily or have enough protein that will trigger muscle protein synthesis in your daily meals. And so I'm going to go over my first impressions of this, and then my plan, and then we'll go day by day on how well this goes. So on first evaluation, his meal plan consists of, at least this one in particular, consists of 4 meals and 1 snack. And that is protein waffles, boneless wings, a fruit protein smoothie, a type of pepperoni pizza on like a flatbread, and then popcorn for an additional snack. Now, right off the bat, this is good because it has been proven that eating ample amount of protein every 4 hours will optimize muscle protein synthesis, or like encourage your body to build muscle as opposed to metabolize it. So we're off to a great start. There's also an additional snack in there which helps as well for anyone that tends to feel hungry in their daily routine. So I wanted to break down his macros and calories first off, because it's quite common using calorie tracking apps and sometimes even nutrition labels to not have their numbers accurate, especially if you're using a tracker such as MyFitnessPal. That one in particular is the one I have the most experience with, and I have found time and time again, even you'll see later when I break down some other numbers, that it's not always accurate, and therefore sometimes in the beginning, it's not as important, but later, if you're wanting absolute accuracy, it can make all the difference. I did the math on his, and they are accurate. So he did go ahead and break down his macros to calories accurately. They matched quite well. I thought that was great. One big thing that I noticed was that he doesn't actually include the measurements of the food that he uses for each of these recipes. And it's a very particular calorie number, right? It's like 1,366 calories. Like, that's very particular, especially not having particular measurements. He uses words like a little bit
of egg whites, egg beaters, a little bit of Greek yogurt, little dash of baking powder.
I will do my best to break down what I'm going to use in my meal prep so that you can possibly interpret it as well, because that's a big deal, in my opinion, when it comes to replicating a recipe, is getting the precise proportion of numbers down. Another observation is that this diet in particular is very low fat. It's extremely low fat, especially for women. It's got like 20 grams of fat in it, so it is on the low fat spectrum. Nothing wrong with that. Cutting out fat is a great way to minimize your number of calories, especially today when you can buy so many foods as a fat-free variety. So that is a great way to start if you haven't already tapped into some of that fat-free stuff. These recipes definitely utilize that strategy. I think it's well known that James himself is not a fan of fiber, and that is a big thing here. There's like no vegetables in this plan at all. Yeah, pretty sure there's a little fruit, but there's no veggies in here, so no fiber almost. And this might impact some people's tummies and how they feel. We'll see how I do, and we'll move on. There is over 1 daily serving of protein powder. I think it's 1.5. Not a big deal, but a lot of people are going to only recommend 1 because it is best for your protein sources to come from a natural source as opposed to protein powders. So there's that. My experience with meal prepping is pretty good. I've made my own meal plans. I've followed other people's meal plans. I've kind of hammered out some of my weaknesses and strengths, and I'm not perfect at it. Of course, nobody is. It's always a work in progress, but I think that will make this relatively easy for me to follow, as well as he's got like pizza in there every day, and I do crave pizza pretty often, as well as chicken, and those two things are in there. And the sweet, for sweet tooth, the smoothie is great. He puts sweetener in there so that you can vary how sweet you want it. There's 2 pieces of equipment that you need for this, aside from like an oven and a microwave, and that's an air fryer and a waffle iron. And then for price, he shops at Walmart quite often, and so do I. So I don't think the prices are gonna be crazy. It's not like he's at a Whole Foods or something. My plan moving forward with this, I wanna do this plan for at least 6 days, see how it goes. I went to the store and it was about $100 for everything for about a week, minus the protein powder. So I already have protein powder, but I can definitely say that my protein powders are anywhere from between $35 to $50 per tub, which usually comes with about 30 servings in it. So that will easily, if you don't already have protein powder, that will easily impact the price of this meal plan. I have a fiber supplement that I intend to use in order to help, depending on how my stomach reacts to everything. Since there's no fiber, we'll just follow through and see how that goes. Because I don't have a waffle iron, I am gonna make pancakes instead of the waffles, obviously. And I don't have an air fryer, so I am going to just use my oven, and I don't think that should have any impact on the nutrition or flavor of anything. But if you wanted to make those substitutions, it should be really easy to do. Whenever I did buy all of the ingredients for these things, I tried to be as accurate as possible and identical to his. It really does help that he shops at Walmart, because I think that's like where I live, there's not many places to shop for food, and therefore this is like kind of a big deal to me, at least, that I'm able to buy something that's like accurately the same thing with the same nutrition and all that jazz included in it. I will share my brands that I used as well for some of the things that he didn't show in his video, so that if you do want to order something similar or try to find something of the same numbers, you can. And my questions were, how meal preppable are these? How well do some of these things reheat? Because when we're looking at the smoothie, I don't have a portable blender, so obviously I can't take that with me. That'll have to be something I make at home. The pepperoni pizza on the flatbread or pitas, he uses pitas in his video, but he also quoted it being like a Joseph's Lavash.
2 Joseph's Lavish pitas.
So I bought the Joseph's Lavash bread, which incidentally is not the same as the Joseph's pitas, but the numbers do come out the same. I have yet to lay eyes on the Lavash pitas in my local Walmart, but I did see them on the website if you wanted to order for pickup. So I know that the flatbreads exist where I'm at, so there's a pretty strong likelihood that it exists where you are too. I think that the pancakes and things will be relatively easy to meal prep. You just put them in a bag or put them in a container and take them with you. There's nothing else that comes with a lot of these meals. One of the things that I have a problem with meal prepping is trying to keep like a carb and a vegetable and meat separate, or if you have something like hamburgers or tacos, if you want to keep your chips separate, your tortillas separate, your buns separate, you have to have like 2 or 3 different things together. This makes it really easy because it's one item basically per meal. So I think it should be pretty easy to meal prep, honestly. It should be pretty effortless, aside from the smoothie. And if you want to make that pepperoni pizza fresh each time. And that's not to mention the popcorn. I wasn't really planning on prepping the popcorn, but I could give it a try, actually. In terms of the measurements and estimated measurements, I will include those in the description box down below. And as I talk about them, I will include my snapshots from MyFitnessPal into the video as we go along for each meal and the macros that go with them. So I want to break down also that, as I mentioned earlier, MyFitnessPal is often a little inaccurate. It's not usually inaccurate enough to like be a problem, but here, since we're going off of very particular numbers, I wanted to try to be as accurate as possible. So the pictures that you see from MyFitnessPal might not be exact as the numbers that I quote down below, because I'm going to go off of the macros on the labels as opposed to the calories that come out of MyFitnessPal, if that makes sense. If not, leave a comment down below and next time I'll keep it in mind and see if I can word it better. Otherwise, let's get into this week, shall we? And with that, welcome to day 2. So I want to talk a little bit about day 1, because that was ultimately when a lot of the number crunching came to happen, right? I had to figure out what the closest products and macros and numbers to fit, okay? I wanted to talk about that first before I went into kind of how I felt and satiety and everything like that. And I did add egg fats into the waffles, first off, if you're kind of curious why the fats on that one are higher than his. The numbers aren't going to be identical because I don't have the exact measurements, okay? I also ran into some hang-ups with making those pancakes because it's possible that the recipe between waffles and pancakes is different, and therefore the texture was different. And you can see I had one hell of a time trying to figure out how to get my stovetop, because it's a new stove, they had to switch out for another one. Trying to get that stovetop not to burn them was a huge pain, and then they were so thick that the low heat was having a difficult time cooking them all the way through. So that was some trial and error. Just keep it in mind if you decide to do the same thing, because I struggled with that. It was a gas stove that did that. I'm used to an electric. Next off, kind of starting off the day a little gassy, which might attribute to some of the changes. It might not. It's still too early to tell. So we'll keep an eye on that as we go along. Like I said, no fibers, so I'm kind of anticipating a little bit of upset. I know that myself, whenever I usually go meals of pizza and wings, it's like my favorite combination, usually I have stomach problems for the next couple days following it. I haven't had those, but I'm just thinking the combination in this diet might have something to do with that. The satiety factor, I was pleasantly surprised at how satiated I was when eating these foods. Like, genuinely, quite full. I struggle with constant hunger and like never being full, so this was pretty good. It might just be because I feel super focused and motivated and excited because I've never done a video on it like this before, and it's somebody else's plan, so it's fun. That smoothie, it having protein powder in it, is thick. I was not anticipating that. Pretty sure I even added extra almond milk in there to try and loosen it up, because like my blender was not having it. And it was very good, very tasty. I did add sweetener to it. I added a liquid sweetener. But we're off to a great start on day 1. I'll check back in with you on day 3. And I'm going to eat the smoothie. Welcome to day 4. Things are going pretty darn well, I think. And we're gonna talk about that, shall we? Let's look at the flatbread pizza stuff. So this is incredibly easy to put together. I think that me getting the multi-grain with the extra fiber really helps here, because this does actually have like 5 or so grams, 3 or 4, somewhere around there. It has some fiber in it. I'd say that we're about halfway here, which is great, because it means that a good bit of whatever I was eating before is now out of my system, and now I get a full feel for how the diet itself impacts me. I did go ahead and meal prep those pizza flatbread things to see how well they do, how easily reheatable they are, and I'm happy to report that I really like them that way. I like folding them in half and cutting them up because they almost become like little Hot Pockets. And I can heat them up and eat them. The cheese is so protein dense. It blows my mind there's like no fat in it, because I love using cheese, but I'm always like, oh gosh, anytime I add cheese, I'm going over on my fats. Enter fat-free mozzarella. I cannot find any bags bigger than the one that I found at Walmart, so I did have to buy, I think I bought a total of 3 bags for this, which then led to me having like most of the 3rd bag left over. But for 6 days, that's what I overall went over, was 6 days. That was a pretty good amount of cheese. But we'll see how it turns out in the end, because I don't know, this has been fun. I really like it. I put a lot of time into editing it already, and we should be close to done, okay? This is already looking like a 20-minute video, so hang in there, shall we? Hang in there, please. I really appreciate if you're actually watching and enjoying this, okay? I'm learning as I go. The popcorn itself was surprisingly a very big serving from what I was anticipating with those little Smart Pop bags. I was expecting them to be a lot smaller, and honestly, the amount of popcorn that popped in them sometimes was close to 100%. I highly recommend that popcorn from then on for everything. You've gotten all the calories, you've gotten all of the measurements, and what I put into MyFitnessPal to get what I got in order to achieve something similar in terms of muscle protein synthesis, and something around 1,300 calories overall per day. A lot of people have opinions about this low calorie thing and how low calorie it is. And my thoughts on that is, as a woman and often sedentary, which means I don't have an active job, I don't spend absorbent amounts of time walking or running throughout the day, this number of calories is quite optimal for me, because it still allows me room for a deficit even on days when I'm not super active, like going to the gym or doing running or walking at least 10,000 steps a day. So I really liked the numbers, especially for sedentary work. If you're doing a lot more active, then this might be a little low for you. It just depends on your height, your weight, where you're at in your journey, and your tastes, you know? I'm gonna go ahead and put my total numbers on the screen so that you can see what I got. I'm also going to include my own calculations of the macros at the end, because MyFitnessPal does have room for error. Gotta keep that in mind at all times. I did actually find the pitas that he was referring to, but they do get sold out very quickly, at least at my location, so the availability wasn't as high. I also found that the 2 pitas were a little more difficult to eat and prep, for me at least, but they're a very viable option for those of you that want to try. The meal plan felt good to eat overall. At this time, I've been doing it for well over 7 days now. I did not actually have to use that fiber supplement anywhere within this plan to make it work for me, which is always an upside. I do not have any progress or weight progress photos to show you this time, because I did take that day off, and I've been trying to get myself back on track to the gym. There's been a lot of schedule changes around here lately, especially with like school going full time and everything here now. I guess we're trying that out. The state feels safe enough and comfortable enough with allowing kids to go back to school full time, because we were on a part-time schedule before. So those changes were occurring as I did this, and therefore I don't feel comfortable with the consistency. And I think I'll do a month on video and what kind of progress I saw that way. Overall, your progress will deal a great deal with the kinds of food you were eating before and what kind of deficit this calorie amount does for you. So always keep that in mind. It's not the diet that does it, it's the amounts and the quality and how it works for you and your lifestyle that's going to make the overall difference. Please share your anonymous opinions below, like or dislike. Overall impressions are important, and your feedback really matters to me, because I like to improve upon everything and take everything to a point where I can move forward into the future. So all feedback is especially important. Feel free to comment on anything that you want to know about later or even now. And if you are interested in more muscle magic and meal prep, be sure to subscribe because that is my jam. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you, and you have a great rest of your day.